together since 7 o'clock this morning. Already that is an accomplishment. Much of our practice is involved with the effort to bring up mindfulness. And that can be a little difficult to measure in terms of success. When will I be mindful? How much mindfulness is enough? And so on. The important thing is that we're putting an effort into our practice. Really, most meditation methods taught on retreats, they all come back to the Mahasatipatthana Sutta that the Buddha gave to the Kuru people. Even if we only mention it in passing or a little bit of it, it's very much central to the teaching of Buddhist meditation. So Mahasatipatthana, teaching on the 4 foundations or bases of mindfulness. So cultivating mindfulness directed to the body, feelings, the mind itself, and then Dhamma, which we sometimes translate as mental objects, or particularly the process by which suffering arises, and also the process by which suffering ceases. And so the practice of the 4th foundation of mindfulness, I call that Dhammanupassana Satipatthana, contemplating, observing with mindfulness the arising of suffering. So, what did the Buddha say is suffering? Is that these attachment to these 5 khandhas is the basis for suffering. So, becoming mindful of the 5 khandhas, observing how the khandhas become a basis for clinging, attachment, which becomes a basis for our suffering. But also the very practical manifestation of suffering in our experience, something that you've been observing today, what we call the Pancha Nivarana, the 5 hindrances. Sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, drowsiness, restlessness and worry, and skeptical doubt. And when we practice meditation, we'll be noticing these 5 hindrances coming up all the time. And they're called hindrances because they block the mind. Not just in meditation, but in daily life. They stop us concentrating, stop us doing good things, stop us being at peace. That's another part of Dhammanupassana Satipatthana. Being mindful and understanding how the hindrances arise, what they do to the mind, and then how to abandon them. And then on the positive side, being mindful of the way out of suffering, which is cultivating the Eightfold Noble Path, but also cultivating the 7 factors of enlightenment. Don't worry, I'm not going to test you on all these lists of dhammas. I'm just giving you an overview of what the practice of mindfulness according to the Mahasatipatthana Sutta involves. The 7 factors of enlightenment begin with mindfulness, and then Dhamma Vicaya, investigating the Dhamma, Virya, effort, persistent effort. Piti, the rapture and joy that some of you have experienced already. Pasadi, tranquility of body and mind. So as you practice more, then your mind and body do become more tranquil, more at ease. And then samadhi. The last factor of the Noble Eightfold Path is sama samadhi, because when all the other factors come together, then the mind becomes settled, still, one-pointed. And then upekkha, the last of the 7 factors of enlightenment, is equanimity of mind towards everything else. It's a combination of sila, samadhi and panya, and the sila, samadhi and panya merge into the mind. Equanimity is the result. So the Satipatthana is giving us both the technique for developing mindfulness and where to put our attention. And basically the Buddha is saying that we have to learn to be mindful in all postures, all activities, all the time, of everything. So there's really no corner in the world of experience, that you cannot be developing mindfulness. So everything comes under the practice of mindfulness, which seems like a lot. And certainly if you study it, so there's plenty to study and read about, learn about. But remember, mindfulness is a quality of paying attention to the present moment. And you may develop a meditation object such as the breath, for example, to train in mindfulness. And having mindfulness is simply knowing, the quality of knowing, being present, knowing to your experience. So that doesn't need a lot of reading and studying. The reading, the study, the listening to the talks can help give us background and better understanding of what we're doing. But in practice, mindfulness is just knowing one breath in, one breath out. And then another breath in, another breath out. And knowing currently you're sitting down, to know that you're sitting. When you're walking, to know that you're walking. When you're lying down, to know that. So even before you go to bed at night, or when you wake up in the morning, establish mindfulness. To know that you're standing. When do we stand? Perhaps the most common thing might be standing in front of the mirror when you're getting dressed or washing or brushing your teeth. And I often mention the fact that every year in Australia, and I assume in Singapore it's the same, hundreds of people are standing, brushing their teeth, and become so unmindful that they swallow their toothbrush. So at that moment their mindfulness and their clear comprehension is probably gone. Maybe they're remembering something that brings up a lot of distraction. They're very angry, or very excited, lost in their daydreams, or they're very anxious. So they're brushing their teeth, and the next thing they know it's gone down their throat. Sometimes it just goes a little bit down. Sometimes it goes all the way to the stomach, and they have to go to the hospital, and it has to be surgically removed or pumped out. And one poor fellow swallowed it into his lungs and almost died. This happens every day all over the world. A simple act of standing and then brushing your teeth, but the mind is not with the action, not mindful. So then other things can go wrong. So this is why the Buddha said standing, walking, sitting, lying down, every posture is a basis for developing mindfulness. This quality of paying attention to what we're doing. Of course, when you're sitting or walking or standing, there'll be other things you're doing as well, which you may pay attention to, but you can't lose track of the very posture you're in, and it becomes even risky in the case of brushing your teeth, which you normally don't think of as a risky occupation, and yet it can be. Lying down is part of the practice. It's not like I only practice when I'm in the hall sitting meditation, practicing mindfulness diligently, which is great. When you go home or go to your rest place tonight and you lie down before you go to sleep, you're tired, you lie down, where is your mind? That's part of the practice as well. And for people who practice mindfulness regularly, they'll have their times when they know their mindfulness is weakest. So maybe that's when you lie down, you let go, because you let go with your body, because you lie down, you're tired, you're exhausted. And then you let go with your mind, and you just want to daydream, fantasize about things you like, people you like. Or on the other extreme, you tend to worry, don't you? Often people cannot sleep at night. As a monk, regularly people come and ask me for advice how to sleep at night, because their own worries, anxieties keep them awake. This is why you have to practice mindfulness in all postures. Mindfulness can be developed in all postures, and it's necessary because suffering can arise in all postures. You can be angry when you're lying down. You can be afraid. You can be full of desire. You can be probably the most common thing that happens when you're lying down is you fall asleep. So that's okay. It's supposed to be sleeping, but it's very hard to stay awake. That's why we don't normally recommend meditating with lying down. But then if you're ill, maybe you have no choice. Maybe you're injured or ill. You have to practice mindfulness in the lying down posture. Or maybe as you get older, you get very weak, you have no choice but to spend more time lying down. So it's not the best posture for developing mindfulness, but it still can be done, and we have sometimes no choice. The important thing is to see that mindfulness and learning to reflect on the Dhamma and contemplate the Dhamma is an ongoing practice that we can bring up any time, any posture. And we should. And one of the biggest sort of steps you'll find in your meditation practice is moving out of the visual or the mode of thinking. When I'm in the hall, I meditate sitting cross-legged, then I go out to the hall and I stop meditating. And lots of us think like that. It's time to let off steam, do other things, and that's obviously the time when suffering often arises, isn't it? When you're not being very mindful in your daily life at other times. Or even if it's not suffering, you're just not very restrained, not very careful. When we engage in conversations, sometimes we lose our mindfulness. Driving. Many people say they practice mindfulness of driving. You ask them, how did it go today when you drove from one place to another? They say, well, the first 1 minute I was aware of driving and mindful and careful, and then thinking about many other things, or talking to someone else but not very mindful. But even if you're trying very hard, it's quite a challenge to be mindful when you're driving. It's still something we have to learn, isn't it? I'm not saying it's easy, but you're learning to see, to broaden your horizon and see everything. It becomes part of the practice when you're following this path the Buddha gave us. Even on other aspects of the practice, like keeping precepts, it's not just for when you're in the temple. You go home, you're aiming to keep precepts, you use them as a way of practicing at home or at work. Some people, every morning before they leave home, they undertake to keep the 5 precepts. Not with a monk, they just do it mentally themselves. To set their mind in the right attitude for the rest of the day. Whatever happens, I'm not going to give in to my anger or be rude or abusive to someone. Whatever happens, I'm going to be restrained and not kill things, or deliberately kill perhaps animals or insects, and so on. They consciously keep the 5 precepts as a regular practice all the time. And if they lose awareness and break a precept and realise they've done that, then they come back to re-establish them whenever they can. The practice of dharana is the same. It's not like you only practice dharana when you go to the temple for a merit-making ceremony, and then you go away and that's it. You don't think of dharana; it doesn't become part of your life. You can. And dharana is also an attitude, isn't it? An attitude of sharing, practicing sharing, giving help, giving material help, giving advice, sharing what you have, and not just with your immediate, say, family or friend, and even sometimes with strangers. The giving of forgiveness, because you never know when you're going to get angry with someone. So that can come up. It's something to practice in any posture, at any time, whatever the situation requires. Even giving Dhamma. Giving Dhamma is something you can practice at different times, and you may think, well, what Dhamma can I give? Well, maybe it's simply the Dhamma of being mindful in a situation, or keeping the 5 precepts, or pointing somebody to a Dhamma book, or go to the temple, or seek out a teacher. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be able to explain all aspects of Dhamma practice. I mean, maybe you can as well. But it can also mean just pointing someone to the Dhamma, or giving them some advice that is good for them, helpful to them. So whether it's dana, sila, or the actual meditation techniques we're developing, therefore all postures, all activities, all kinds, not just for one specific time. That's too narrow. Having said that, it's also useful to practice meditation maybe once a day or twice a day if you've got the time. At least once a day, have a time where you dedicate yourself to that specific practice. So mindfulness of breathing, even if it's only for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, because you'll be learning in that period of time how to concentrate your mind and practice mindfulness in a very direct way, in a very complete way. Of course, when you're working or you're driving or you're eating, all these other activities, you practice mindfulness as well, the best you can. But at least once a day, set aside time so you can sit down and do some meditation very sincerely, practicing letting go, bringing out the mindfulness and the breath and letting go of everything else. And you'll find if you do that regularly, your level of mindfulness will slowly or quickly will improve. So this is one aspect of the practice, learning to see that every part of our life is part of the practice as well. Because your mind is always with you. It's not like you leave here and your mind stays here. You go home and your mind less and you don't know what you're doing. Your mind goes with you, so you can train it. You can practice at home or work or wherever you go. But we use the 4 foundations of mindfulness as reference points, and sometimes they're translated as frames of reference. So say you're at home or you're at work and you experience different feelings through your day. Sometimes you have pleasant feelings, you feel good, and you notice that, you become mindful that, at the moment I have pleasure. You eat some nice food, or you're relaxing, you sit down when you're tired and sit in a chair and you relax, or you're enjoying some experience and you have pleasurable feeling. That's something you can be mindful of, pleasure. You can be mindful of painful feelings. And this is I'd say an essential part of life, is learning how to be mindful and practice mindfulness with pain. because everyone experiences some pain sooner or later. And you have a choice, don't you? When you're experiencing pain, you either react to it with aversion, I don't like this, I don't want this, or you can use it as an opportunity to bring up mindfulness. Not just in meditation, and that's one area you may become mindful of pain when you're sitting, pain in your legs, say, pain in your back, but maybe doing some job or work that repeatedly brings you pain in your body, or if you catch some illness, or over time as you get older and you get pain in the joints or something. Sooner or later we all experience pain. So as you're learning mindfulness, you can bring that mindfulness into train yourself to pause. So you're experiencing some pain and you feel it, and you may be getting caught up in some anger towards it or some mental agitation because of the pain. You stop and try to establish mindfulness. It's almost like you're learning to have a conversation with your pain. So say you feel some pain and it's making you really worried, when you're worried, oh, what is this pain? Does it mean I have some horrible illness? Or is this pain going to be here forever? Whatever you think. Just pause and direct your mind to that painful feeling. So it could be in your meditation or it could be at another time. You just pause and you send your mind to wherever that painful feeling is occurring in your body, and you learn about it. You ask yourself, how does this pain arise? Where is it? How intense is it? What area of the body is it covering? Is it a very small, narrow pain, or is it a very large, covering a large area? Does this painful feeling change? Sometimes it's there, sometimes it goes, it comes, it goes. You notice if you have pain, what you tend to do is seek a distraction, isn't it? You don't want to experience this painful feeling, so you look at something else, or you listen to something, or you think of something to take your mind away from the feeling. But if you're doing that out of habit, without mindfulness, you're not learning, and actually it's taking your mind away in an unmindful way. It's actually probably prolonging the problem, making it worse. Because if you have some pain, and the first thing you do is just establish awareness in your body and say, where is the pain? And try and be mindful of it and learn from it. One thing that you may find is that that painful feeling is more bearable, easier for you to be with than you thought. And you start to separate between the painful feeling and your thoughts about the painful feeling. And you'll notice they're two different things. There's the mind, its reaction, I don't like this, I don't want this. And the actual painful feeling itself, which may be in part of the body. Or you could do it in the same way with painful memories, painful states of mind. There's this mental pain that come up, and you're remembering with anguish something that happened to you before, or a mistake you made that made you angry. And now you're remembering it, and you're feeling the pain of that memory as it comes up, and you feel, oh, why did I do that? This shouldn't have happened. So you have some negative thoughts, and you have a painful feeling in your mind. But you stop and you establish mindfulness and say, okay, this has happened, I have this memory or this thought. Where is it coming from? And maybe you can have enough awareness or mindfulness at that moment just to say, it's just a memory. And a memory in itself isn't much at all, is it? It's just you can remember something that happened before, and it may be unpleasant. So it brings up a painful feeling, but it's just coming from memory. Memory itself is very kind of neutral. We can all remember many things, and some of them are good, and some of them are not so good, but it's just memory. You need the mindfulness at that moment to say, this is merely a memory arising into my awareness. And what the memory do? Well, the memory comes up and it passes away. If we're not mindful, you have the painful memory and you get caught up into the pain, so then you start suffering, you have negative reaction, get caught up into the details of it, the storyline, the drama, and then you have the lead and the supporting actors, and you have visual images, and they said this and then that happened and this was happening and it was good and it was bad. You have your story and then all the details, the cast. So again, it's like a movie in your mind. Maybe it can be visual or it can be just thoughts, concepts. But without mindfulness, you tend to get lost in all of that, and it puts you in a certain mood. So you become afraid or angry or worried. Whereas if you can establish mindfulness at that moment, you say, okay, this is unpleasant, because you may have an unpleasant feeling, but it's just a feeling arising. I can know it, and then it passes away. That feeling may be returning for a little while, but you're not feeding it. If you're establishing mindfulness, you're not feeding it, you're not holding on to it, you're not keeping it there in your mind, so you can let it go. So letting go doesn't always mean you'll be able to get rid of the problem straight away. In the long run, you will be getting rid of the problem, but in the short term, maybe you still feel some pain or have an unpleasant memory, but now you're establishing mindfulness, so it's like you're taking a step back from it. Step back from your own mind, your own experience, because you're saying, I'm mindful, I know this, feels like this, there's these thoughts, but I'm not going to feed this or hold on to this, so you start to let it go. So if you're letting go in that way with mindfulness, maybe the whole big problem that you were thinking about suddenly starts to shrink down. And this is very effective with physical pain, mental pain, anguish, fears, worries about the future. And the other thing is, with mindfulness present, panya, or wisdom, can operate very well. Not only do you know your experience, but you can understand it with wisdom. You can say, this is just a thought, or just a memory. There's no real problem here. I can see it's just a thought, I can let it go. And you have enough wisdom to let go in that moment. That it's just an impermanent thought, it arises, it ceases. So you don't get caught up in it or lost in it. So another quality of the practice of mindfulness and then bringing out wisdom is a non-delusion. You're not fooled or tricked by the mood that you're falling into. You fall into a mood and you pull yourself out of it. It's just like when you walk along the street, maybe on one of these days when there's a thunderstorm and there's a high water coming up in the street, and maybe you miss that and you tread in a puddle. You go, ugh. And then you pull your foot back, don't you? Because you feel the wet. And you go, I don't want my foot wet, my shoes wet, so you pull your foot back and you carry on walking. Mindfulness can be a bit like that. You establish mindfulness, you can see yourself falling into a certain mood or reaction to a memory or worry about the future or some reaction to a bit of painful feeling. But then you stop yourself falling in, you pull yourself back to this place of mindfulness, and your wisdom is aware and knowing that it's just a thought, just a feeling. This is what we call detachment, or even you could say equanimity, where you still experience certain things, some pleasant, some unpleasant, but you're not getting caught up into them or lost in them. So at the beginning of the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the Buddha taught, there's this phrase, avijja domana sanya, pulling your mind or letting go of avijja. The translation is covetousness, domanasa, grief, covetousness and grief for the world. But it really means liking and disliking, wanting, not wanting. You're pulling your mind back from that by establishing mindfulness. And that's not something you just do here in the meditation retreat. You can do that at home. When you notice yourself becoming caught up into some form of greed or desire, some kind of aversion, negativity, you notice it with mindfulness, and you tell me, this is what I have to let go of. So monks, we used to live with Ajahn Chai, this saying, keeping your mind in the middle. Keeping your mind in the middle towards the different experiences you have through your day. So it doesn't mean to say practicing mindfulness will get rid of all problems. You'll never have to have another painful feeling again if you practice mindfulness. It's not that. You can't do that. But what you can do is establish detached awareness or equanimity that helps you to deal with the problems that come up. Not to get so lost in the pleasant things that you become greedy for and attached to them. Not to get so lost in the aversion towards painful or unpleasant feelings and experiences that you get lost in that. Keeping your mind more in the middle. Ajahn Chah had one description of this. He said our mind is a bit like a bell. We have a bell. It's an old style bell that hangs and have what we call a clapper in the middle. It's a church bells or those bells in temples where they pull a string and the bell moves. That clapper will hit either side. So Ajahn Chah said, it hits the right hand or this side of the bell. It's like your mind getting lost in aversion, anger, ill will, negativity over here. Or the bell moves over here and the clapper hits it on this side, and it's like getting lost in desire, greed, excitement, all the things that pull you into through pleasure. So pleasure over here, pain over there, your mind is always just moving around. And each time it gets stuck or attached to one of these experiences, it's like a little hit with the bell that makes a noise. So you start noticing, my mind, I'm attaching to this pleasure here, I'm attaching to this pain over here. Whereas when you bring up mindfulness, you may still have some pleasant or unpleasant experiences to deal with, but your mind is not moving around all the time or hitting them all the time. It's just knowing them. There's more stillness and more detached awareness. And you notice when you're peaceful, your mind can accept many things, even difficult things, or it can be peaceful enough not to get lost into excitement and distraction, because the mind is more in the middle, not running after these experiences of pleasure, pain, liking and disliking. But when we lose our mindfulness, it's like back with this bell, and it's tiring, isn't it? All day long, ups and downs, I like this, I don't like that. Well, the Buddha's description of this was we're like leaves on a tree. The unenlightened mind, the untrained mind, not much mindfulness. It's like a little leaf on a tree, like this Bodhi tree outside here. Beautiful Bodhi tree, but the leaves, when the wind blows from one side, the leaf moves, and the wind blows from another direction, the leaf moves. The leaves are not very strong. They just blow around wherever the wind comes from. And our life is full of winds. What the Buddha called the 8 worldly winds. So that's gain and loss. You get your wages, then you spend it. You get a present, and then you finish with that. You gain a meal, and then you eat it, and it's gone. You get gain and loss all the time through every day. So it's like these winds, pleasant and unpleasant experiences affecting you. You have to learn how to navigate that with mindfulness. Keep your mindfulness and your wisdom working as you go through life. Or praise and blame. One moment they're happy with you and they tell you nice things. Next moment they criticize you and they scold you and they're rude to you and they don't care. Or they just ignore you. Praise and blame. Gain and loss. Status and loss of status. Nowadays it can be very fast. Get your promotion and then the company changes and you get retrenched, get a package and you lost your job. You had status with that position and then you lost it. Or you're single and then you get married and then you're single again. hope not. Status is like it. You get, everyone nowadays, they travel, don't they? So you get your immigration status, applying for a visa. You get your visa, and then your application is not approved, not banked, no visa. Trouble. Maybe you got a visa, but then your visa status runs out. You no longer have a visa, you have to leave the country. These are just examples I'm giving, but status and loss of status, it can be power, it can be influence, reputation. But they're not stable, are they? Gain and loss, praise and blame, status, loss of status, and pleasure and pain. In one day, not even one day, one meditation session like this, you'll have some pleasure, come into the room, it's cool, sit down, feel good. And then the monk keeps talking, and talking. And the pleasure starts to change, doesn't it? Oh, my leg hurts, my back hurts, you start wriggling around. Pleasure and pain afflict us all the time, they're not stable. Sometimes pleasure, sometimes pain. Even lying down, when you're lying down at the end of the day, you're relaxing, oh, it's so good on my bed, lie down. But after many hours of that, it becomes painful, doesn't it? Even lying down becomes painful. Eating your favourite food, if you keep eating it, it becomes painful. Hearing your favourite music, after a while, it becomes painful if you keep hearing it over and over and over again. Keep watching your favourite movie, after a while it's like, I can't stand this anymore, depending on the person. I once knew a young boy who watched his favourite movie 26 times in a row until he could understand and remember the plot, and he could quote every single line before it was said. I couldn't believe it because I couldn't even watch it. Like, oh, this is so boring. But even your favourite thing, if you keep indulging it, it will turn into pain, won't it? And then pain can disappear and you're back with pleasure again. It's not certain. So that's what you take away from these 8 worldly winds, is they're not certain, they're not reliable, they don't last, they come and go, because we call them conditions. What teaches us that, or what shows us that, is mindfulness. As you become mindful, you're aware, oh, there's this pleasure here, but it doesn't last. There's this pain here, it doesn't last. Things come and go, up and down, in and out. Or like 2 sides of the bell bashing around. So this is why practicing mindfulness, it can be hard work, of course, because there's lots of things that pull our mindfulness away every day. We like some things, we get lost in it. We hate some things, we get lost in hatred. Things pull our mindfulness away, but if you practice, you get better at it, your mind becomes steadier, calmer, clearer, not so deluded, not so caught up in things, and then you can really see with wisdom the nature of things. And you can see, well, these experiences are just that much. Pleasure, it's good, but it doesn't last. And what doesn't last, can you really say that you? When we're enjoying something, we can say, I'm so happy I enjoy this. But is that really you? Is it really you? And there's a self in that? Or is it just a temporary condition, a temporary experience that arises and ceases? Because when we're not mindful, we tend to own it, don't we? Own that experience. I want to own this is good. But then it changes. And if you've already established ownership, mental ownership, attached to it, you've identified with it, then when it changes, it catches you out, and your sense of self goes with this change, and suddenly, oh, I've lost what I thought was good, what I thought belonged to me. So you spend all that money, you spend the extra $100,000, and you buy your new car, your showpiece car, and you're very happy with your new car. And then you drive it around and somebody scratches it, or something goes wrong with the engine, or over time it gets a bit rusty. The car doesn't look so good anymore. It's not permanent, it's impermanent, and it's not really your car, because if it was your car, you can say, don't get rusty, nobody can touch this, nobody can steal it, nobody can bash it, nothing can go wrong with this, but you can't, can you? Mindfulness and some investigation of the truth is what exposes that truth to you. Helps your mind to see, it's nominally mine, we have our owner's certificate, okay, it's mine, but that's only superficial. In reality, you can't control that car very well. Mind thinks it can, my car, but the reality is no, it's just a collection of metal and rubber and other parts, and sooner or later these parts break apart, they wear out, they get old. So once you understand that with cars, then it's the same for everything else, isn't it? Body, this body doesn't last, so it's not really a self, is it? It's only, that's a label we put on, my body. So once we say you rent this body, you're rentee, you're renting this body, you don't really own it. Just like a house, you rent your apartment, someone else owns it. This body is owned by who? It's owned by nature. And nature will come and claim it back when you get very ill or you get very old at the end of your life. Nature takes it back, doesn't it? And we cremate it, bury it. So you're only renting this body, you don't really own it. Who understands that? Mindfulness and wisdom understands that. But if we don't practice mindfulness, we just get deluded. This is me. And that's why we experience fear. The doctor gives you some news, you've got a lump, or you've got some high blood pressure, or you've got this or that. And the doctor does some tests and you're worried, because you still say this body is me, myself. But just like a car, ultimately you can't control it. You can't stop it getting older. You can't stop the white hairs. Best thing would be if we were all just born with white hair. Nothing to worry about. We start off with the white hair. But we're all born with dark hair. I was born blonde. I lost my blonde hair after about 4 years. Then I went brown, now I've gone white. We attach to it, don't we? We identify with hair as self, me, mine, myself. So when you go bald, you don't like it. When you lose your hair, when your hair changes colour, we don't like it because it's not what we want, but hair is not self. Even just hair can make you enlightened. You've probably all seen the statues of Venerable Sivali, the monk who was foremost in having offered dana over many lifetimes, and then in his last lifetime all the dana came back to him. He got enlightened when his head was being shaved when he was a little novice. They were shaving his head to become ordained as a novice monk, and he saw the hair leaving his head, going to the floor, and they said before his hair reached the floor he was already enlightened. He saw it as impermanent. It makes it very easy, doesn't it? Next time you go for a haircut, they say, I'm going to charge you $50 for this. You say, you take it, as long as I get enlightened. Cut your hair and you watch it fall to the ground, and it's not self, is it? Nobody grabs their hair and says, I'm going to keep this. You don't, do you? You don't want it. Once it's cut, off you go. Keep it. I don't want it. It's rubbish. Because it's not self. It's only then you accept it. When you have no choice, when your hair is cut, it's on the floor, you have no choice to accept it. But when it's on the head, you're still clinging. I've got to colour it, comb it, brush it, don't touch my hair. The younger you are, the worse it is. When I was young, somebody comes in and touches your head, and says, don't touch my head. It's not your hair, it's just dead cells. What is hair? It's just dead cells coming out of your blood. And when the hair gets too long, it drops out. It drops out in the wrong place, doesn't it? It drops out in your or Or if it's someone else's hair, that's one of the jobs the monk has to deal with. Every day people cook for you. They're very kind and they're very appreciative, but then sometimes the hair drops in the food. And they offer you this nice food, and oh, where did this come from? And the other monk says, shh, or embarrass somebody. Hair drops in food, nobody wants it, do they? Because it's not self, and it's not even pretty for someone. Hair is not self. If hair was self, you say don't drop out anywhere. Stay looking young, good, clean, good colour, whatever aspects of hair you like, you just say be like that all the time. It doesn't happen, does it? It doesn't work. You keep your hairstyle for a while, and then after a while you're bored with this, get a new hairstyle. So there's one aspect of who you think you are. If you apply mindfulness to that, you see it's impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self. That already reveals you the truth, and then you can bring you to enlightenment. And you just expand that out to every other part of the body, or every feeling you have with this body, pleasant, unpleasant, or even neutral feelings also arise, pass away. Or every thought, good or bad, or very kind of ordinary, neither good nor bad, kind of ordinary kind of thought, arises, ceases. Every memory, perception, every sense consciousness in your seeing, in your hearing, in your feeling, in your body, in your thinking something. It's not really a self, is it? It's a collection of moments of self. So it's not saying there's nothing there. There's something there, but it's not a self that you can just control and make do with what you want. We say these are conditioned things. Feelings arise, pass away according to the set of conditions at that moment. And we do our best to control our world so we can get maximum pleasure. So you come into the room, you turn the aircon on, but you don't want to be too hot. That's our life as humans. We're always trying to control things to make it a bit better, a bit more comfortable, get what we want. And nobody's saying anything wrong with that. It's just there's a danger that you get lost and think you control the world. It's one of humankind's delusions, and we think we're better than the world. Particularly nowadays, we've got technologies, we've got your phone. So any problem, Google it. Any place you're going, GPS. Anyone you need to talk to, ring them. Any bit of information you need, watch it, look at it, get it on the phone. So a phone may be very helpful, very useful for many things, but at the same time there's a danger. It feeds the delusion that you're in control. I own this world, I own this phone, therefore I own the world. We get deluded by technology very easily. We keep people going longer now, people live longer, which in one sense is good, isn't it? It's our merit, it's our good karma that there's more, better health care, better hospitals, better medical systems in place. But sometimes that feeds a delusion, oh, the doctor will fix it endlessly. You know, and eventually even the doctors can't fix everything. And sometimes it leads to a lot of suffering, doesn't it? And you can't accept the fact that you're getting old or sick. You're mentally resisting it, so you can't die peacefully. That happens all the time now. And sometimes you have to accept the inevitable impermanence of a body or a life. You do your best to look after your loved ones or yourself, of course, but eventually we're going to die one day, so we have to prepare ourselves for that. So this investigation of impermanence, not self, using mindfulness, can go on all day in every situation. There's never a time when you can't do it. Of course we forget, I know we forget, we get lost in other things, and later on we sort of, oh yeah, the monk said it's not self. You bring your mind back to the present moment and, oh yeah, he did it's not self. Okay, I better start thinking about that because I'm suffering. Sometimes you're a bit late when you bring the Dhamma too late when we're already suffering. But it's better late than never. The idea is to practice mindfulness more often, more and more often. Your mind is with the Dhamma, with the truth, more of the time. You suffer less. It's not that it's to make you depressed or feel that there's nothing good in this world. The idea is to stop your mind suffering with all these changes and uncontrollable nature of life. And it's possible to do that. I meet people all the time who practice the Dhamma, and they can be quite peaceful even when they have to meet with difficult situations, maybe when they're getting ill, people at the end of their life, or the ups and downs of life, have to change job, move house, problems with a family member, whatever the suffering is that they encounter, but they use the Dhamma to help keep their mind clear and understand the impermanent nature of these things so they can let go. You might say there's nothing better than being able to let go towards the end of your life, and you may have lots of fears and worries, but you can keep your mindfulness and let go of those fears and worries. That's a sign of a really healthy mind. It's one of the best things a human being can achieve in this world is live their life in a way that they can let go of suffering right to the end of their life. So I've talked for quite a while now. Maybe I'll leave this talk there